welcome to episode 4 of Ryan's Musical Rambles. Coming up this week, I am talking to the incredible Grace Hodgett Young. You may know Grace from productions such as the massively successful Sunset Boulevard starring Nicole Scherzinger and Tom Francis, and Hadestown in the West End, and more recently, the incredible Punch at the Nottingham Playhouse. Coming up this week, we are talking about the different challenges between performing in a musical to a play, and what it is like going from 3 massively successful shows with such a big fan base and the pressure of that. I hope you enjoy my chat with the wonderful Grace Hodgett Young. I started my chat with Grace, as I always do, by asking her, where did it all begin for her?
So, my older sister actually used to go to a club on the weekends called Spotlight, for like performing in drama, and being an annoying little sister, I was like, I want to go as well.
Yeah.
So I started that when I was 9 years old, and I was so young, but I knew fairly early on that I wanted to do that properly. Um, so I did that, and then I managed to get through school, and I did a performing arts diploma, BTEC at college, and then I auditioned for 2 drama schools, and I got into Mount View on a scholarship. So, um, yeah, I've been performing for a long time, since I was 9.
Wow. And was there a particular show growing up that made you fall in love with performing, or was it just the industry in itself?
I loved the show Hairspray. I watched that a couple of
It's
times.
my favourite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And so I think that definitely made me fall in love with it.
Yeah.
And it was quite nice to see people that look like me on stage, and so I
Yes. Yeah.
fell in love with it.
So you did some stuff at drama school. So how long were you at drama school? Was it 3 years, 2 years? What was your drama school story?
So I did 3 years, and I got a first in my degree when I graduated.
Wow.
Um, so I auditioned, and I wouldn't have been able to go if I didn't get the scholarship. So I was very grateful that I
Yeah.
got that. And I absolutely loved Mount View. Really great training. I hadn't had a single singing lesson when I auditioned, and so I think that kind of put me in good stead, because I was just a sponge to all the learning, really.
Yeah.
Um, and I loved it. I trained with some great people and great teachers that I'm still in contact with now. Um, so yeah, I loved it.
How far into the training did the audition to come about?
So we were only allowed to start auditioning in third year. Um,
Yeah.
and they were very, Mount View were very strict on the fact that we weren't allowed to leave for a job unless it was.
Yeah.
So they were very specific about what we could audition for. But we did 3 shows in third year, and my agent kind of scouted me from the first show that we did, and we stayed in contact throughout that year. And then I signed with her towards the end of third year. Um, and then she started sending me through auditions, and then the Sunset audition came through whilst I was still finishing
Yeah.
degree.
So I was actually at the first preview of Sunset. Um,
Wow.
and because I had never seen it before, but
Mhm.
one of my friends that I was there with, he grew up loving the original, but I had no idea what the story was or anything. I knew it was going to be a big thing, but I didn't know anything about the show. When you were there, were you aware of how massive it could be? Because obviously I've spoken to some people that have been in big shows and the pressure that comes with that. So when you started to see that it was becoming massive, did that come with a lot of pressure, and was that ever hard to deal with?
Yeah, so I think at the beginning I was very naive and just grateful to be there. And so I
Yeah.
didn't really think about what the show was or how big it was going to be. I was just grateful to be doing what I was doing. Then as the show ran and obviously the Broadway run got announced, I
Yeah.
think that's when I started to feel the pressure, and it was hard to deal with, and it manifested in very weird ways for me on
Mm.
stage, in like anxiety on stage that I'd never had before, because I'm
Yeah.
quite an anxious person, but on stage I feel very comfortable.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to deal with, but also once I got out the other end of it, I was like, oh, I am stronger than I think, and I can
Mm.
pressure. Um, and yeah, you just have to remind yourself that this is what you wanted for so many years. Um, so even if it is hard and if it does come with a lot of pressure, that's what you wanted essentially.
And did you know much about Sunset before you went into it?
No, I was the same as you. I hadn't ever listened to it.
Ah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd heard of the title, but I'd never ever watched the film. I hadn't listened to the show. And in my audition, Jamie Lloyd said to me, "Do you know the show?" And I said, "No." And I thought I could lie, but I just like, if he
Mm.
asks me a question, then I'm gonna be, so I said
Mm.
no. And he said it's good that you don't, because this is going to be a completely different version. And I think
Yeah.
it put me in a good position because I just sang with my own voice instead of trying to sound like someone else, and um, had my own intentions with the script, which I think could have been easily influenced had I have had a preconception of what the show was.
Yeah. So how did it feel then when you found out that you were going to Broadway?
Broadway, it was a 50-50 chance if it was going to go or not, and I'd already been offered Hadestown. And so I said no originally to Broadway because they didn't know if they were going to go, and I
Uh,
couldn't say no to a year's worth of work for something that could go to New York, might not.
yeah.
Um, but then I was loving doing Hadestown, but I did start to have those thoughts of, have I just said no to something that could have been
Mm.
incredible? And then I got a call during rehearsal of Hadestown from my agent, and she said that the dates have changed and they're still going to Broadway and they would like you to go with them. And so it all kind of worked out for the best because it meant I got to do 6 months of Hadestown and then go to New York. Um, but yeah, I couldn't believe it. When I first started Sunset, I never ever dreamed of the fact that it would put me in New York, that, I would have been nominated for an Olivier, like all of
Yeah.
these things just completely otherworldly that I would be on my wildest dreams.
So I remember being at the first preview when obviously, like I just said, knowing nothing about it really.
Yeah.
I knew with one look, and I knew I think we never said goodbye, but that was pretty much about it. I hadn't even really heard of the song Sunset Boulevard, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And when the bit happened where you guys went outside, because it was such the first preview, I just remember the gasp of everybody whenever, when the whole audience realised that Tom was going outside. It was such an incredible moment.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little bit about how that idea was put to you guys and where that came from?
Yeah. So when we were rehearsing, it was very up in the air about how we were going to open Act Two, and we'd done loads of different drafts, as Jamie calls them, of Tom just kind of like walking around the stage or maybe going into the audience instead. And then I can't even remember who it was specifically, but someone was like, "What if we took him outside?" And it was literally just a question in the room.
Wow.
And we were all looking around at each other like outside the
Mm.
theatre, that can't. And we rehearsed it in Shoreditch where we were rehearsing, and he like went outside of the building, and Shayna went with the camera, and it was a very much a feeling in the room of like, if this gets pulled off, this is going to be something really, really special. Um,
Mm.
but it didn't really come together until we were in tech, and we could actually plot through that track around the Savoy, and um but yeah, it was a very in the moment thought. Also, it was, how it came across. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd imagine doing it in the subway is amazing anyway, but actually doing it on the streets of New York,
Yeah.
because I remember hearing that it was going to Broadway, and honestly, Grace, my first thought was, how are they going to do that in New York?
Yeah.
But you guys managed to pull it off, it was incredible. What about, so after it had finished in London, there was a bit of a gap, wasn't there, between Broadway and the West End sort of closing and then Broadway opening. Afterwards, did you feel a little bit of post-show blues or like an anti-climax? Because obviously you've been on this surreal journey and then it just sort of stopped for a while and then happened again on a whole new level. How did you deal with that gap in between?
Yeah. Well, I think because so when Sunset was during shows on the West End, I was rehearsing for Hadestown.
Yeah.
I was doubling up. So when Sunset finished, had to go straight into Hadestown anyway. So there wasn't any gap for me to kind of think about it. And also, I think because on the last bow that we did on the West End, we knew that the four of us were coming back.
Yeah.
There was a sense of sadness because we were saying goodbye to the original company, and um I think a sense of that naivety as well of we don't know whether this show's going to do well, we don't know whether this is good, and we kind of closed with that feeling of we've got something great here. um so yeah, there was a sense of sadness for seeing certain people go, and but I think because we knew we were coming back and because I went straight into another job, I didn't really have time to kind of sit with those post-show blues.
Yeah.
And throughout Hadestown, I was recapping all of my Sunset stuff anyway because I just didn't want it to leave my brain. Um, so yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't really have time to kind of sit and be sad like I did when I left New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hadestown. What was your kind of takeaway from that? Were you aware of the show? Did you know the music? What was your relationship to that before going into it?
So I'd listened to a few of the songs, and mainly because a lot of the people that I trained with had said to me, "You'd be great in Hadestown, like listen to Hades."
Yeah.
And so I'd listened to a few songs. Um, and I think the pressure that we spoke about earlier, I definitely felt that with Hadestown more so than Sunset in the West End, I think, because with Sunset, it was my first job. No one knew who I was, and most people were there to see Nicole in a musical.
Yeah.
And I think I felt the pressure of being someone that had been in a show before, now from a supporting lead to leading a show.
Yeah.
Um, so I felt that pressure a lot, and I wasn't, I was very aware of the fact that this had happened quite quickly after leaving drama school, and I was conscious of living in the moment and also trying to do my best at the job. And um, but I absolutely love doing that show, that musical. It's so challenging vocally, and it was
Mm,
so sat in such a different place to Sunset as well, which I think was really an amazing opportunity for me to show off two sides of my voice so closely together. Uh,
yeah.
but I absolutely loved it. I met some amazing people on that job, and the fans of that show really, really care about that story. And so you feel really carried throughout every show you do because you know there's at least one person in the audience that knows how it's going to end, that knows the journey that
Yeah.
is go on. Um, so that's really a lovely thing to be a part of, and so different to Sunset because, when we went to New York, there was fans of the show, but when we first opened in the West End, there wasn't because it was new. Um, whether Hadestown already had such a fan base, and so we
Yeah.
were very held and protected, which was nice.
Being in such a massive show like
Mm,
that, it definitely has its highs and lows. And I think we live in a time where social media is such a big thing. I get so upset and so angry about some of the comments that these performers are given, because I just think there was no way you would say that to somebody's face. Things like sex as well,
Yeah,
some awful things get said about people in sex, and I just don't know how people deal with maintaining a positive mental health when people are just having such negative comments given to them for absolutely no reason at all. So when the comments were given to you and the company for both shows, how did you
yeah.
deal with that?
You have to remind yourself that these people are hiding behind a keyboard.
Yeah.
They're not. Like you said, they would never ever come up to you and say that to your face. And also every single person on these stages, they've all been trained in what they do, just as in any other profession, we know what we're doing. Just and what we do on stage is so subjective. It's like fashion, right? What I think is a good, nice outfit,
Yeah.
might not think is a nice outfit.
Yeah.
And that's the same with singing, that's the same with acting. And so there's obviously nicer ways to say it, but I just think if that's the best that they can do, then, you know, whatever. I got the job for a reason, and so did everybody else on the stage. Um, and that's the most important thing. This industry's so hard anyway. You have to have so much faith in yourself. Um, and you have to deal with rejection from people where it matters, people that you want to work for,
Yeah.
say. And so I think we do have a thick skin anyway. So when these people that are completely irrelevant to the industry have their opinions, it's like, fine, you can think that. And of course, there are times when it's easier said than done to just ignore them. But um, yeah, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, I think.
Yeah. I've had times in my life as a disabled person within the industry, I've had people probably thinking that they're nice and actually they're really not. So I get people saying things like, for somebody of your condition, you've done really well. And I'm like, sorry, what do you mean by that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like I understand that you think that is something really nice to say, but that is like the most backhanded compliment
Absolutely.
ever.
Yeah. I think sometimes people just don't think before they speak.
No, no, and I do want to talk about Punch. As somebody from Nottingham, were you aware of Jacob and the storyline behind that? What was your relationship to it?
I was aware of it at the time that it happened, but I
Mm.
think um, doing the play has really opened my eyes to the different levels of what happened and how complex it is. I think when you see something in the news, it's very easy to make judgments and stick labels to people without
Mm.
actually knowing the details of the story and how it happened and who these people are. Um, and so as a person in general, I'm not very black and white. I'm very see the rainbow kind of person.
Yeah,
But I think this play has even opened my eyes more to just be more open-minded to things because I think it's so easy to hear Jacob's story and judge and think
yeah,
you put yourself in that situation or you used to fight all the time but the way he's turned his life around since the incident and the amazing things he's done and continues to do um is really really inspiring for anyone. um so yeah, it's been such an honor to be a part of this show and really special. I think again coming from musicals, like doing something that actually like really really touches people and can teach people things, getting schools in, because I think even at my school fighting was so normalized and encouraged almost. Like
yeah.
I never got into one, but most of my friends did, and it was
Mm.
kind of the thing to do, and you can really really hurt people. And um yeah, I just think it's an amazing educator, this play. I think it's incredible.
So, how far into the rehearsal process did you meet um, Jacob and Joan, and did you get to meet them within the rehearsal process, and how did that feel?
So I think it was the first week we did a Zoom with Jacob, David, and Joan separately, I think. Yeah, so we did Jacob first, I think, and it felt quite surreal, I think, because you hear so much about this person and you think you know them, but you actually haven't met them, and you're rehearsing these really traumatic events that have actually happened to real life people, and then suddenly you've met them.
Mm,
But it was also quite nice to meet them and hear their side of the story. So we met Jacob, and then a separate Zoom we had Nicola, David, and Joan, which was also surreal for me to meet Nicola, having
yeah,
her in the play. Um, and yeah, I think it was that there's a massive pressure, I think, that comes with doing something where the people are still alive and they still exist and they still
yes,
process emotions that, from these events. There is a massive pressure that comes with that, but it's also quite nice to get their blessing after they've met us or after they've watched it, if it's a rehearsal or whatever. Um, and then Jacob did come to watch the first full run that we did in the rehearsal room before we moved to the theatre. And again, that was quite scary because you want to. I think being obviously we're not the first cast to do this show, so you want to bring yourself to it, but
yeah,
equally you don't want to add too much because it is a real life story and these are real people. Um, so for him to watch it and again give his blessing was um really quite relieving. I think that was quite an intense rehearsal. We were all very nervous.
yeah. So you touched on something really interesting there, and it made me think of a question. So obviously you mentioned that you weren't in the original cast of this show. So going on from that, do you prefer being in an original cast or replacing? Like with Sunset, obviously you guys were the first lot to do that kind of version of the show. So do you think there comes more pressure with being in that first company or being in the replacement company? What do you prefer?
I think I prefer to be um in the original cast in general. There
Yeah,
is pressure that comes with it, but I think there's more or a different kind of pressure when you're not the first person to do
yeah,
it because as we've spoken about people having their opinion, there's always going to be comparisons um and so I think there's also just a creative freedom that you get when you are the first person to do it, which is different with Punch because Adam's so collaborative and so
yeah,
I do feel like I've been able to bring myself to this, even though I'm not the first person to do it. Uh,
yeah.
but not every director is going to be as kind.
No, 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 no. Yeah, believe you me, yeah. I have been in some rehearsal rooms that haven't been quite as open as Adam's. Going from playing a real person,
Mm.
that opening night, did you find yourself thinking in moments of the show, oh my god, the real people are watching this? I think if that was me, I would
Mm.
sort of get a bit lost in my thoughts. So, how did you sort of try and let that escape your mind and not let the pressure of the real people watching you get too much?
Yeah, I think there definitely was an added element of pressure when we knew that they were all in. Um, but I think something to kind of calm those for me was that they want us to do well. They want to raise awareness about what happened and help it not happen again, which is what the play does. And so I think they will do well. It's scary because they are real and there's such a pressure that comes with that. Um, but yeah, I just think that once you've met them as well, it kind of the pressure goes down a little bit because you're like, oh, these people are just
Yeah,
nice, normal people. And so yeah, I think once you can kind of put a personality to the name, then it kind of makes you breathe a little bit more. But I think I will always get a bit more nervous, a bit more butterflies in my belly when I hear that Nicola's
Yeah.
in, when Lena Jones in, when Jacob's in, because it's their story, and so you want
Yeah.
justice.
So I want to go back to something that we spoke about earlier, and that is the different skill sets that are required between doing a musical to a straight play. So, what is there things that you prefer to do in a musical, and is there things that you prefer to do in a play? And do you find one a bit more vocally challenging than the other? And yeah, just talk to me a little bit about the different skill sets that you have to use as a performer from a play to a musical.
It's definitely been a massive learning curve for me, again, because I'm also a musical theatre girl through and through, and so
Yeah.
um, that's all I've ever known. Um, and so I think this particular show has challenged me in ways that I don't know if a musical ever would, because I'm playing so many different characters, and so there's a lot of kind of actor muscles that I've probably not used since leaving drama school, because I've been doing leads, and I've obviously been playing one part for the whole show. Um, Whether with this, the backstage traffic is mental. We're all running around getting changed and then back on stage and then running off
Yeah.
again. And so I think, honestly, the stamina has been a real big learning curve for me, because we are literally running around like headless chickens, changing costume, then going back on stage, and you have to look composed and not out of breath. And um, so, yeah, it's definitely challenging in that way, because we are playing so many different characters, and you want to add a little something into them that makes them stand out, makes them different, so it's clear that they are different. Um, But then I also think, I mean, I've absolutely loved doing the show. I think my heart will always be in musicals for sure.
Yeah.
That's my comfort zone. But it's been, like I said, it's been challenging in ways I never thought I would get challenged in by doing this. And I said to Adam, I was so nervous to do this, because I'm a musical girl, and I was very aware that I was going to be in a room full of amazing actors, and I think there's a massive stigma around musical theatre performers
Yeah.
that they can't really act. Like, if they've got a good voice, then it doesn't really matter if they can act or not. And actually we can do it. And we deserve to be in those rooms just as much as anyone else. So yeah, it's been a big confidence boost, I think, doing this for me.
Do you find it more challenging, say, singing 10 to 20 songs a night or speaking constantly without any singing?
I think technically it's probably I think it's harder to sing,
Yeah.
but I think because we're just talking in this, I can get in my head quite a lot about, if my voice is feeling tired, I'm really conscious about projecting and
Yes.
doing more, because it's just talking. I'm like, well, it can't just be talking, because it's a play and I need to be on voice and doing this and
Mm.
doing that. And so I think it's easy for me to get in my head with a play, because it's
Mm.
out of my comfort zone to be on stage and not sing.
Yeah. I think for me it's so I did 5 years as an actor
Mm.
before I realised that my talents were more for behind the scenes, and that is definitely my passion. And I actually have a new musical that's in development at the moment, which is very exciting, and that is all about the challenges that disabled people face within the performing arts industry. And again, that is why I wanted to start these podcasts and have these conversations to maybe give people the opportunity to have conversations or to ask questions that maybe they're a bit too afraid to ask. So I just want to say thank you so much for doing this today, because as somebody that's seen you in Sunset, it's a real bucket list moment for me to have you on here. So yeah, thank you so much. But before we go, I just want to talk a little bit about Hairspray, and obviously it's a show that we both love for several reasons. So growing up, what was it about Hairspray that made you love it so much?
I think for me it was the biggest thing. I mean, I loved the music, but I think it was seeing people that looked like me
Yeah,
stage was a massive thing for me. I think I mean, I always talk about how Tiana is the first like black Disney princess, and um
yeah,
I was, I don't know how old I was when that came out, but old enough to realize that like what I look like isn't what the industry is
mm,
running for at that time. And I think um, seeing a show with people that look like me in it was the kind of push I needed to be like, no, you can do it. Because I knew in my gut that this is what I wanted to do and this is what I was good at, but it's hard to envision yourself doing it if there isn't anybody that looks like you doing it.
yeah,
Um, And so, yeah, I think that's probably the main thing. But I mean, the music is incredible and I love it. And in my head, I'd love to play Seaweed, but I know I can't, but I'd love to.
well, 2026, time to change
It's
it.
true.
I think, I am not, I would love to play corny if I was still an actor. That'd be kind of the role for me, definitely. But I think for me, it was because, did you see Hairspray in the West End when it was
I think
originally
I might
on?
have done, yeah.
Yeah. So, Leanne Jones, who was the original Tracy, she has been such an incredible supporter of me over the years. And we are actually talking about doing a podcast together about the importance of accessibility and representation within the industry. And for me, seeing Tracy Turnblad on a stage, somebody that society at the time didn't think her looked stereotypically perfect, was the closest thing I had ever seen to a disabled person on stage.
Yeah.
So for that reason, Tracy Turnblad has always been my biggest hero. And I would love, and over the years, so many of that original company, like Leanne and Michael Ball and Dan, they've all been such massive supporters of me and my career. And they are always, it's really lovely for me. Because whenever I post about the podcast, you can guarantee somebody from Hairspray will always repost it, which
Yeah.
is really lovely for me because they remember me from being a little boy, and they've been such a big champion. Everything that my life has led to in this industry has all come down to the confidence that Hairspray gave me, and even to this day, I mean, I can't believe next year it's going to be 20 years
I
since
know.
it opened on the West End, which makes me feel very old. But yeah, it's such an incredible show, and I would love to see you in it, Grace. I really would. Give you a few more years, and I think you'd be an incredible motor. I
Let's
am,
stick together.
yeah, if that happens, I will be there, pom pom cheering, um, going, I remember when we spoke about this on the podcast. But yeah, it is, yeah, knowing that you have that same passion there, but like I do, it just made me even more passionate to talk to you than I already was. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you to the incredible Grace Hodgett Young for that really incredible conversation. Join me next week with a very, very exciting guest. Thank you to the amazing Leanne Jones for helping me design the logo for Ryan's Musical Rambles. And thank you to the phenomenal Scott McHaley for allowing me to use the instrumental backing track to making an entrance from Secret Sides of Us, the musical, as the Ryan's Musical Rambles theme tune.